Okay, so you sent us some really fascinating text about, well, it focuses specifically on God's plan for marriage.
Right.
And what we really want to do in this deep dive is sort of like get to the heart of like what this plan looks like
Oh,
as
yeah.
it's presented, in your source material.
Exactly.
And, really kind of tease out those core components and what it's trying to say.
Absolutely. And, we're approaching this with a sense of just trying to understand
Right.
the framework that's laid out here.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to, pass judgment or to analyze whether it's, valid or not.
Source, yeah.
But just to really kind of
Unpack it, yeah.
what this material is presenting.
Okay, so like right off the bat, one of the things that really jumps out
Yeah.
is this idea of marriage as like, the foundation for a
Yeah.
family.
Mhm.
And specifically, the text talks about marriage as the primary structure for raising children. And it, really emphasizes how this structure provides like a stable environment
Right.
where children can learn, important things like love, respect, and responsibility.
Absolutely.
So, like, what do you think is the underlying significance
Well,
of that emphasis on structure?
I think what's so interesting here is that it seems to be saying that there's something inherent about this specific structure of marriage that is uniquely suited to the development of those values.
Right.
It's as if it's saying that this framework provides a particular kind of stability that's really important for, nurturing the next generation.
Okay, so then the text moves into this idea of oneness and companionship.
Right.
And it talks about this whole concept of becoming one flesh.
Yes.
Which it describes as like a profound intertwining, almost like you're forging this like new complete unit. And it seems to go beyond just like, the physical connection.
Right.
To include like, deep emotional and spiritual intimacy.
Absolutely.
And really, at its core, it's about having this like reliable partner,
Yeah.
For mutual support.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, like, what is this idea of oneness?
Well, if we think about
Yeah.
how this connects to the bigger picture, I think it's really about a significant level of integration and interdependence within the marital bond. It's saying that it's more than just two individuals living together. It's actually, the creation of a shared identity and a shared life.
Okay, this is where it starts to get really interesting.
Yeah.
The text talks about marriage as mirroring God's covenant.
Okay.
Now, for someone who might not be familiar with that terminology,
Right.
what does it mean for marriage to mirror a covenant?
Well, think of a covenant as like a really serious agreement. It's marked by strong promises and mutual responsibilities.
Right.
So when the text describes marriage as mirroring this, it's highlighting, I think, the intended depth of commitment,
Okay.
the loyalty, the faithfulness within that relationship.
Gotcha.
And it's kind of connecting those qualities back to God, to the divine.
All right, so now we come to this idea of mutual submission and service,
Okay.
which doesn't sound like a one-sided thing at all.
No, not at all.
The text suggests that both the husband and the wife
Right.
are called to submit to and serve each other, and even to like prioritize the marriage and their partner's needs above their own.
Yeah.
So how do you see this concept of mutual submission
Well,
playing out in practical terms?
I think it really underscores this reciprocal dynamic. It's shifting away from a hierarchical view of marriage and really emphasizing a partnership that's grounded in mutual respect.
Okay.
And this proactive willingness. Yeah.
To prioritize the well-being of the other person.
Okay, now the text also touches on procreation and family life.
Right.
And it frames marriage as part of like this larger design for the continuation of humanity through children.
Yeah.
And it's seen as the intended basis for raising families and passing on important values.
Absolutely.
So what do you think is the broader implication of linking marriage to procreation in this way?
It connects the individual relationship
Yeah.
to this much larger societal and even historical purpose.
Okay.
It positions the couple within this continuum of generations
Yeah.
and emphasizes their role in transmitting, beliefs and principles.
Okay, and then finally it gets to this ultimate goal,
Yeah.
which the text describes as seeking God's glory.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about how with the couple and their family,
Right.
strive to honor God through
Wow.
their lives.
Mm.
And this includes things like, raising children.
In accordance with their faith
Okay.
and living out their principles
Yeah.
on a daily basis.
Hmm.
So how do you see this overarching aim?
Well, I think it ultimately frames all the other elements that we've talked about.
Yeah.
The stability, the unity, the
Yeah.
mutual service as pathways towards
Yeah.
this higher purpose.
Mm-hmm.
The marriage and the family become like a testament to their faith
Okay.
and a means of glorifying God
Yeah.
through their actions and values.
So it sounds like we're looking at a really comprehensive
Absolutely.
view of marriage here. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just one thing.
It's very interconnected.
Yeah, it's this foundational structure for a family.
Mm-hmm.
It's a source of deep unity and companionship.
Right.
It's a reflection of divine commitment.
Yeah.
It's a practice of mutual service.
Mm-hmm.
It's a means of continuing humanity.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's a way to honor God.
Absolutely. A really fascinating set of ideas.
Yeah, definitely. And so we've, in this deep dive, we've really just explored those specific components
Mm-hmm.
of God's plan for marriage
Right.
as they're presented in the material that you shared.
Exactly. And it really does, paint a detailed vision for partnership and family life.
Yeah. So on that note, think about this.
Okay.
How might the core principles of a covenant, this idea of deep commitment
Mm-hmm.
and mutual responsibility,
Yeah.
how might those apply to other significant relationships and commitments in your own life?
That's a good question.
Even outside of a religious context,
Mm.
what does it mean
Yeah.
to approach those connections with that same level
Mm.
of loyalty and mutual service?
Mm.
Something to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time.
Bye.